연재 진보조던 힘이 장존을 모는 진보가 되었다. 발그러다는 전도 실물도 tumba tuje janla ki shom sar ne jor serni jen kamsa jor tiji janda yelar man jingme panzo jala soran gon ke toban bor shinje long gon ke toban bor shinje long gon ke toban bor shinje lo.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all the sentient beings, please give rise to the unsurpassed and supreme bodhicitta.
사이냐보 마원 지ten 남스 하다 뭐가 그 랑랑 걸리 넘버만 내가 송고네 스통을 인지와 감 간송고네 스통의 니와 감 디르굴 톤버 간석 대다가 상지짐 산락직 도바감 상지 상지 샹칩선 산락직 도바감 더바침붐 돌대 습chất 습chất 직금 습chất 직금 습chất 직 투니 투버르티르나 로아테들라 쿄티르 점처다 신터 탐케지 겹장 점버 샤고 대들라 타이 비르그르남 나네 스크르나네 타이 비르그르나네 냐라 탐치도 지그르다 겨장 샘진 때다장 타이르더 끼에네 데와 파슴 소발라 롱쇼브른 여로 디체 좀든디 지 즉습자반 더끝도 까서도 까서바 다스타 마공 라민조 더는 난던 쿄락tat 니티 점치 탐김 티 완송네서 동마지 디체 장치 생활 생활 전부 사이냥부 빈무의 발항아 살랍증네 좀든데란 더끝도 소르밥 점밥 좀든데 니티 때르 틀레 총름 잡바 무자 무구데 마온 지ten 남스 릭지움 간지크 산디지 담반더 기피 예드 라시 티바 춘쳇덕기 탐 yapchag tomchag tamala tenni ganzak tedar kenche levjarte tari komphang lam nirtung go proshina gewi chu thoba dang tagdab jiba dang nyamlem shibe na rangshik jiblana me pi shangchib le shirmar dobar mu mago so tertar songwi tse tertar songba ti tse charji na ne shangchib sanwa namkin nyambo jibshawi jomdan de landar kato sorab zumba jomdan de 더 섬치작섬디어 낸더 학반에 좀 정든데 집상추선화 사이냥베 삼기미티비 점치지 또라 또장 흥버름 잔나 마원직된 남스릭기버금 릭기오모 강지가 하던 흘라소빈로 남기 노르덴더 투바당 상추선화 사이냥봄 찬 투바당 디 스크즈글랍타와당 쳔차를 시나 파연지르 남바 치르타와 투버른지르와테 정든데기 마원당 따르테 샘친 남라 판비르라트 디데프탄덕 소르 좀든 디집상추선과 남긴용 볼란들 끝도 깝사라 럭버ညոն라 일라 종식당 니 쿄라 셰프적도 담바르 샤고 마원직된 남스리 기범 리기모 강지급 상추선과 사이냥보 끄즈금 통화담 도르덴다 투바담 도르덴다 플럭바 로르 쳔바담 푸담 메토담 자똥담 쿠담 rumboche 소베 짐바 감 초밤 바로와 당 또정 너바당 따와당 기베 시험사로시나 파연 니르제 토바테 지 흘러 남기 공성 다흘러 남기 공성 중화다 니 기임제 니르진던 페로아당 섬 타라 참탄 지게산저 바당 지상치블 시르머도 바당 징아 그제쿠 포좀 소브른 제로아다 지금 나땅 름넷 멈종와당던 메친직바남 제와당 겟 춘근 기노바 메바다 금머 남김 토나 가장 기바당 줄 한지 남기 동족 셰바당 적직 르메티 리스트 기브르 제와당 저니 갸르보당 룸부 찌머 제와당 적슴 ızıkşıt mzijan tanadık badan çivji hayır damandır 제와당 저nga yernkuru 총버 갸르보 제와당 적직 숭오니 지진기 문시당 담바 담바담 저든 레와탐치 예비전던 저바담 저기 닌코르남 가잠 탐바담 저그 디마임 빈징바남 제와담 녀시 레기 람용스 자바담 녀시 강도 조경 토바메 바담 녀니 참물 물음 대장 깨바담 녀르섬 쇼르남 등어담 저바담 녀지 츠르가미 소름 지티알렘 바담 녀르감 팍바르남 기토정 흑바 当你这江中总想王博诺瓦当你等相当年纪甚至的西巴当你跟他这个上级的国贸托巴国那么肯定不打打当毛我拉当拉当这顿拉所必想出生活赛年不参托巴当第一个是了十几万当赛年不在于东的你的土内得了多挣我巴当大瓦当从查了些那朋友那把等托的这个你的娘人个살인 대바당 니 랭암바남 잡바당 섬 상지지 중화당 주상집을 실물 도바당 nga zamchiji stum perjang taiba당 zhigu ngone ji zhenji zamchiji stum tejang stum perjang taiba당 ngone ji zhenji monxi dang dambadang dan tartik sangje tobago dizi shukji sangje namdang jotumepe yang jotumepe sangje dang shangchib sanghua chenpo dang la le debji la subun zhuwa 남지 존든데기 존든데 시작했다 산주 상황 사이 년부 삼지미 집이 점치기 스톱라 ngabramzate 투네 문도 숑아미 비 얌츠 맞도 숑을 겨도 디세 삼시삭삼기 하남기 부당 매독당 리고당 림보체 도시를 라소빔 초파 호드메페 메밥 존든데 시작했다 산주 상황 사이 년부라 퍼장 쿠른디바르남기장 타르모자데 기베 따장 척신의 송 사이 냥보 사위 몰음김 도레 라당 머남레 추크타피 레거테 라당 머남라 추크타피 레거테 레거 척슴바고 샹츠브슨화 사이 냥보 사위 몰음김 도지샤와 족소 슌은 탕자럽기 데르는 점바 로자와 침보 시차로토 럭지르기르카트 럭지르기르카네 jarkat jarwatan dar tirib nirchig bir tot wod rabjin chchshilot wod.
On March 6th of this year, I finished the Tibetan translation of this Ksitigarbha Sutra.
Devjan shaba ri jarpo, devjan shaba yishir number jarwa.
Before we begin, there are a few things I need to mention. The first matter is that right now, due to this year's pandemic situation and various other reasons, the Dharma study and practice here at Larungar has not been greatly affected. However, it has not been quite the same as before. In terms of our written and Dharma teaching examinations and many other aspects, there have been some differences from before, but overall we have continued to persevere. Our Khenpos and Khenmos have worked very hard. Everyone has remained very steadfast, continuing as always with Dharma study and practice, propagating the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings. Throughout this process, we've also maintained our management policies as before. Especially since 2017, regarding new student admissions here, all have been done according to our lawful procedures for the Monks Academy and Nuns Monastery. Outside of these legal channels, we haven't admitted a single person. Moreover, here at Larungar, anyone over 50 or 60 isn't allowed either, even for a short stay. There are certain age restrictions. Also, those under 18 years old are not permitted to be enrolled as full-time students of the Buddhist Academy. Even if you are staying here temporarily for 2 or 3 days or 1 or 2 months, I hope everyone will cooperate with the Institute's management in these matters. As for who used to be considered auditing students, we may change that policy in the future. We're currently discussing it. This isn't entirely certain because when it comes to their management, as well as many other related aspects, there are many factors we also have to take into consideration. Everyone should understand that for a Buddhist academy, whether regarding age or admission requirements, we maintain strict standards. Larungar is a Buddhist academy. It is neither a regular school nor a retirement. I hope that those of you whose conditions do not fully meet the required standards can engage in hearing, contemplation, and practice of the Dharma in other suitable places, because the Academy's overall capacity is really limited. Our management is also quite strict. Moreover, the overall capacity here is still limited. Regarding this point, we may need to make some different adjustments. As for those who were previously considered auditing students, how they will be arranged and handled is still under discussion. Therefore, I hope that people from other places won't come to Larungar with overly high expectations. Any Buddhist academy is like this. I hope you should understand. It's not a place where people can come and go freely as they please. It is not that simple indeed. If people come and go entirely at will, this would amount to intentional harm to such a profound Buddhist holy place. I think everyone should respect the local rules and regulations. As Buddhists, especially as Mahayana Buddhists, we should not constantly disrupt the normal rules of Dharma centers out of selfish motivations. This is unnecessary. This is the first matter I wanted to mention today. The second matter is regarding the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. I showed it to you yesterday. But actually, I did not explain it very clearly at that time. This is the teaching that a few years ago I spent 4 years translating and 4 years teaching. Many people had already attended teaching it at that time. But at that time, I also said we could only barely provide the text to everyone. If there is an official publication later, you can buy it at that time. You can also find your own ways. Recently, A Feast of the Nectar of the Supreme Vehicle, an explanation of the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, has been officially published. It comes in 2 volumes with commentary by the omniscient Mipham Rinpoche, and the verses were composed by Maitreya Bodhisattva. You can request or purchase it through various channels available in different locations. Now, I'm not trying to advertise anything, but actually, some properly published books can really help you with your study. Otherwise, later on, many people might say they don't have this or that for study. When studying, they do not have the texts. But when these books are available, people sometimes just don't cherish them. There are such situations. Last year, we published a book called Treatise on the Treasury of Abhidharma, written by Jamyang Lothar Wangpo. At that time, over a span of about 2 or 3 years, I taught this Abhidharma Kosha. This was also published last year. There is also the commentary on the adornment of the middle way. I also taught this before, back in the relatively early period. Right now, for the commentary on the adornment of the middle way, there are only the audio recordings from back then, no videos. The commentary on the adornment of the middle way was also published before. There is also the commentary on the root stanzas of the middle way, written by Mipham Rinpoche. This was written by Mipham Rinpoche. In the past, we spent approximately over a year teaching it. So regarding these, sometimes we are also quite short of books. At times, you can find ways to purchase them yourselves. I am not saying you must purchase them, but personally, I am also like this. In the past, wherever I went, I seemed to have quite an attachment to Dharma texts. Whether in China or abroad, wherever I went, I would often purchase many books, even various kinds of worldly books. Even up till now, I'm still like this. This habitual tendency is quite strong. Regarding other various possessions, sometimes I feel they're meaningful, but sometimes they really aren't. Now, I'll just say this to everyone once more, especially when it comes to the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. Indeed, when we taught it, it was over a period of 4 years, right? That should be correct, right? How many classes did we teach over 4 years? 111, right? And for the adornment of the middle way, we had 128 classes. As for the root stanzas of the middle way, there were 114 classes. As for the treasury of Abhidharma, there were 161 sessions. So we have taught all of these before. And for these books we published this time, throughout the whole teaching process, any textual mistakes found during translation have all been corrected and properly adjusted. Before we had an official publication, they were basically adjusted from the lecture notes taken during the teachings. But later on, this should be considered the final version, which has been proofread many times. This is the second matter. Then the third matter is that this year, probably starting next Monday, we are planning to teach the Sutra of Great Liberation, the Sutra of Vast and Great Confession, eliminating sins, adorning and attaining Buddhahood. Originally, I wanted to delay this a bit longer, but some important matters should not be delayed, and I said, we may not finish teaching it this year. I also have many things to do this year, so we may not finish it. But this year, we will begin. This can also be considered a Vajrayana Liberation Sutra, like a Liberation Tantra. My requirement is that any of you attending the classes here in person, you are all welcome to come. There is no need to specifically tell many other people. If someone really has great faith, we request that if they listen to the first class, they should listen to the last class. They should listen to every class. Not like with our Ksitigarbha Sutra. When we first started teaching, many people listened. When we taught the last class, quite many also listened. But in the middle, many people were not present. I feel this is not a proper attitude to receive Dharma teachings. Regarding the Sutra of Great Liberation, I will provide the oral transmission to everyone, and I hope you will propagate it in the future. Perhaps in our history, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it in detail, but historically, if we talk about teaching and propagating it, perhaps there haven't been many in the Han region. In the Tibetan region, we can say that in every household, this is a very, very important sutra for liberation. Moreover, it is a sutra taught when the Buddha was approaching parinirvana. The Buddha manifested parinirvana on the 15th day of the second month. At that time, he manifested parinirvana beneath the sala trees. At that time, before entering parinirvana, he taught this. This should be one of the Buddha's very last and extremely precious teachings left for everyone. Whoever sees this sutra sees the Buddha. Whoever upholds this sutra upholds the Buddha's body. Therefore, seeing this sutra is actually no different from seeing Shakyamuni Buddha. If we uphold this sutra, it is actually no different from upholding Shakyamuni Buddha's true body. There is no difference. The Sutra of Great Liberation also says this. And for many of us, whether it be purifying negative karma, confession, realizing emptiness, or making aspirations for the future, benefiting sentient beings, many profound instructions are contained within. The Sutra of Great Liberation also says that actually encountering this sutra is even more rare than encountering the Tathagata. It speaks of many such merits. Indeed, after we study it, perhaps everyone will truly benefit immensely. In the past, any sutra or treatise I have taught you, you've never been disappointed afterwards. Everyone feels, oh, this treatise is indeed very good. Oh, this sutra is indeed very good. In the future, if there is an opportunity, many people want to listen again, study again, and propagate it again. And many people should be very joyful. We can say they are filled with joy. Therefore, I think that starting next Monday, we are preparing to teach the Sutra of Great Liberation. Originally, I was worried that the text might not arrive here, but our circulation office has also printed some. However, the printing quality is just average. When you open it, bam, everything falls out. Look, I am not telling lies, but it is acceptable. Actually, we did not communicate well here. When I mentioned it that day, now several different versions have started coming to us. But that is fine. When the time comes, for those practitioners with karmic connection, we can also send them to some others. For others, whether through the internet or downloading from other places or making copies, you can also find your own ways. Actually, it is not particularly lengthy. Oh, there are simplified characters and also traditional characters. Various versions are all available. It is also in the Taisho Tripitaka online. You can also find ways to borrow it yourselves. The reason I am mentioning this today is because there is still approximately 1 week remaining. If you want to study it, you can make preparations in various aspects. There should be no problems for those at Larungar. When the time comes, each person will receive Dharma texts, some of slightly better quality, some average, and some more ordinary. This is one matter. There is another one. Yesterday, when we were teaching the verses, it seems there was a section where I skipped ahead to what came later. But only one person brought this to my attention. Others, including many who were taking lecture notes, either did not notice or were reluctant to say, or for some reason I do not know. Therefore, in the future, when reciting oral transmissions, if the recitation is incorrect, you should immediately raise your hand and speak up. If raising your hand is not visible, you can stand up and say it loudly. When you usually come to the teaching hall, you talk to each other loudly. But this is not necessary. When coming to the teaching hall, being loud like that is not very good. But if the transmission is recited incorrectly, or if there are verses like these that were not taught or not recited, you should report it. Sometimes on my part as well, there may be various situations. Therefore, today I will simply explain the literal meaning of the verses that were not taught yesterday. Those who wish to enter mountain forests or cross the seas, poisonous and vicious birds and beasts and wicked people, evil spirits, evil ghosts and evil winds, all difficulties and sufferings, and the 2 verses below. These were not taught yesterday, so I will simply provide a literal explanation. The Tibetan was all recited. For those who pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or make offerings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or recite the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, if they wish to enter mountain forests or cross the vast ocean or go to places with poisonous and vicious birds and beasts as well as wicked people, evil spirits, evil ghosts, including dangerous places with various calamities, evil winds and hazards, all of these are extremely dangerous and difficult situations. When encountering all of these sufferings, if we gaze reverently upon, make offerings to, pray to, and pay homage before the image of the great being, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, before the image of the great being, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, like this, if we go to mountains, forests, the vast ocean, or to any place, all of these adverse conditions will be eliminated on the spot. Therefore, in our future lives, we may need to pass through particularly difficult and dangerous or terrifying circumstances. At such times, you can either recite the verses of taking refuge in the 3 jewels yourselves, or pray to Tara, or pray to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva for relief from suffering and difficulty, or pray to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Indeed, these terrifying places can all vanish. These terrifying scenes can all disappear. Sometimes we inevitably have to pass through some very dangerous places. This can happen. Perhaps now it is slightly better. For example, now at night we have street lights and other illumination lights, including cell phones and flashlights, but in ancient times people had to travel through many dangerous places. This was the case. Including when I was young, I also had such personal experiences. Once, when I was in middle school, it's not like going to middle school in cities now. When we went back from middle school, since it was the nomadic tent life in the Tibetan region, and nomadic families could move their tents any time they wanted, they might even move a dozen times a year. But back then, there was no cell phones, no text messages, none of that. So when I went home, I just couldn't find them anywhere. They were not in this valley. They weren't in that valley either. I'd go searching from one valley to the next. Khenpo Lodro went through the same thing as well. After he had stayed at Larungar for 2 years, his mother asked him to go back home. He went to the place where they used to stay. When he arrived, their tent was simply not there. So he asked the people around, then crossed mountains and ridges and ran off to another place before finally finding them. This is what he wrote. At that time, I was the same. During winter break from middle school, as I headed back home, the trip took about a full day on foot. But because we were dismissed at noon at that time, I was eager to go back home. Perhaps my mother and father were also waiting, so no matter what, I set out in the afternoon. By the time I reached halfway, it was already dark. When it got dark, I had no flashlight in my hand, but to get to my home, I had to go through a huge stretch of forest. In the forest, there was only one path. Following this path, it was still very difficult to find. And not long before that, maybe around 2 years earlier, there was a woman from our area whom everyone knew very well. We used to herd cattle there quite often. She was a rather heavy and very strong woman. But right on that very path, she had hanged herself and died. Later, many people said that they actually saw her. Many people fell ill because of this. There were many such accounts. That night, I had no choice but to pass through this path. I recited the 3 jewels for a while and then Tara for a while. As I came along, I dared not recite loudly. If I recited loudly, would she perhaps hear it? I was somewhat worried. But when I arrived at that place, even the slightest sound, like rats or other small creatures making a noise, made my hair stand on end. It seemed as if I myself felt that my hair had all stood straight up. I dared not speak, dared not walk. I waited a bit. If I sat like this, would she perhaps be nearby? Because that person kept appearing before my eyes, it was also quite unsettling. They had described it all very vividly beforehand, how she had hanged herself at that time. Later, how many people saw her, how those people fell ill. I passed through that path, and moreover, that path was particularly difficult to find. Also on this path, there were 2 relatively dangerous places. There was another place where at that time many bandits had all been killed beneath a tree. Later, people said that these several people would cry out loudly in the middle of the night. Many people heard various sounds chasing after them when searching for yaks there. Amidst various terrifying scenes, I recited Tara and the 3 jewels as I went through. That night, I did not encounter anything. At about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning or some such time, I finally arrived home at the tent. Throughout my life, I often recall this experience. Last year, when I went to my hometown, I saw that forest. I asked my younger brother, is that the place where that woman hanged herself? Yes, that's it. Because locally, that place was quite well known. But that night, I was quite brave in passing through there. Perhaps many of you wouldn't dare to pass through there, although at that time there was nothing special, no immediate manifestation after praying to the 3 jewels. None of that happened. But in any case, after praying to the 3 jewels, my fearful mind soon settled down. At that time, I was also quite young, not yet 20 years old, probably at that time. So in our lives, at times we may indeed encounter relatively evil spirits, evil demons, evil ghosts, or wicked people. We may encounter all sorts of dangerous places. There may be threats from rather terrifying people, even in our human world. All of these can be eliminated through praying to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva or by reciting the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva 10,000 times. This is something we missed in the previous class, so we need to cover it now. Today we reach the final class, which is the chapter on entrustment to humans and devas. Entrustment means to entrust. Regarding humans and devas, in this Ksitigarbha Sutra, in the end, to whom does Shakyamuni Buddha entrust it? He entrusts it to those with karmic connection in the human world and those with karmic connection in the heavenly realm. Most importantly, to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, so that he will protect and propagate it. At this time, the Buddha raised his golden arm and again placed his hand on the crown of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Mahasattva, because earlier it should have been in the chapter on the assembly of emanations. At that time, Shakyamuni Buddha also placed his hand on Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's crown. At that time, it was for praising and comforting. Now at the end, he does so again. In this sutra, I remember there are 2 times of Shakyamuni Buddha placing the hand on someone's crown. When the Buddha places his hand on someone's crown, there is still a special, profound meaning. He should have placed his hand on the crown twice. Then what did he say? He spoke thus to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitigarbha, your spiritual power is inconceivable. Here, because it is extremely important, Ksitigarbha, he repeatedly and earnestly, with great solemnity, great urgency, and great sincerity, because below, all sentient beings in cyclic existence are to be entrusted to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The Buddha spoke with a deeply reluctant expression. Ksitigarbha, Your spiritual power, your power of blessing, your power of divine abilities is inconceivable in this world. Your power of compassion is also inconceivable. You treat every sentient being as if they were yourself. Your compassion is inconceivable, and your wisdom is also inconceivable. Your wisdom is inconceivable. Understanding the true nature of all phenomena. Your eloquence is also inconceivable. Regarding your eloquence, it is not merely sophistry or honeyed words, or being good at clever debate. It is not like that. It should be wisdom that greatly benefits sentient beings, very keen, possessing the 8 treasures of eloquence and so forth. Your eloquence is inconceivable. Here it speaks of the inconceivable. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva possesses these awesome power, compassion, wisdom, and eloquence. Actually, among us humans, for those great Dharma teachers or great masters who can truly propagate the Dharma and benefit sentient beings, possessing such eloquence is extremely important. In our history of Tibetan Buddhism in the past, at that time there were 2 persons called Dzogchen and Dzogchen. When Dzogchen was approaching his passing, he said to all his followers, Dzogchen's wisdom and eloquence are both inconceivable. His benefiting of sentient beings is also inconceivable. You can regard him just as you would regard me. At that time, he was about to enter nirvana because he went directly to Sukhavati. He went directly there, that is, in his biography. He went directly to Sukhavati. Therefore, if we are to select a leader to protect the Dharma or a great master, this should also be one of the criteria. If he has no blessing, no ability, nothing at all, that will not work. If there is no compassion, much of what he does will be selfish. Without wisdom, he probably cannot do anything well. Also, in this degenerate age, eloquence is very important. Even though he possesses all the others, if his speech is also poor and his eloquence is also poor, unable to say even a single sentence, his wisdom, compassion, and spiritual power are all hidden within his heart. They have become Dharma treasures. In that case, there may also be certain difficulties. Just like in our degenerate age now, there are all sorts of people without faith, and even those with various wrong views and wrong understanding toward Buddhism. For such people, if you do not have a certain eloquence, I am afraid there will also be certain difficulties to liberate them, so eloquence is still very important. In our process of hearing, contemplating, and meditating, we must have compassion for benefiting sentient beings, and we must also have wisdom and eloquence. Well, especially eloquence is indeed very important. Yesterday, some people said to me, when you were teaching the Ksitigarbha Sutra, why did you talk about neuroscience and cognitive neuroscience? Why did you talk about these things? I said, on the one hand, yesterday's class seemed to have very little content. I was afraid I could not fill the time, so I added a bit of neuroscience in between. On the other hand, if people nowadays do not understand science at all, that may also not work. Today I also shared a quotation from the Tathagata's Parietal Bone Tantra. It proclaims 72,000, all the types of channels. These channels are what we now call the nervous system. In this Tantra, it says our human nervous system has 72,000 channels. Also, the number of our breaths is 21,600 in a single day and night. These principles were cited in the wish-fulfilling treasury that I am currently translating. Although it is not very extensive, it is explained quite clearly. Many people now believe that our mind is actually produced from the brain. As for how it is produced, even scientists cannot explain it. Is it produced in the manner of identity, mind and brain produced in the manner of identity, or is it produced in the manner of difference? If produced in the manner of difference, how can the clear consciousness of sentient beings be produced from inanimate matter? They have absolutely no way to answer this. Then why do they say this? Because in their research process, indeed, when various regions of our brain undergo some changes or injuries, our mind's memory, including conceptual and non-conceptual minds, undergo some changes. Because of this reason, they think it should be produced from there. But actually, it may be affected by certain phenomena on the spot. It does not necessarily mean they are produced from there. We also acknowledge that within our body, there are many different channels. These channels also govern different visual functions and so forth. These visual functions and so forth also exist. We can say, although these nerves and our consciousness are not one entity, they can still have an effect. Therefore, Any reaction of our mind actually has a kind of external condition effect from the body. If it functions as an external condition, it does not necessarily mean the mind is produced in the external condition. We must also examine this causal relationship. Otherwise, many people now basically believe it is in the alaya consciousness, but actually our true alaya consciousness now, they also cannot determine it. Because science, especially the science of the mind, has existed only for about 70 years. Our so-called psychology now has existed for about 70 or 80 years. Our neuroscience has also not existed for 70 or 80 years. Recently, there have been more neuroscientists, but their various theories also differ. So sometimes, when we ourselves have not done a bit of research in this area, when others may ask you about it, or when others question you, or when you yourself have no general explanation for this principle, no approximate statement, I'm afraid there will be certain difficulties in our tantras. They are explained extremely clearly regarding these channels of the human body. In some medical texts of Tibetan Buddhism, they are also explained very clearly. But the sources of much of Tibetan Buddhist medicine are also considered to be from the tantras. In the tantras, there are also many distinctions regarding the human channels, wind energies, and essences, including in our wish-fulfilling treasury, much is explained. At night, why do we dream? Actually, if our essences and wind energy, if they enter, because within our body there are human channels, animal channels, and also hell realm channels, various different ones. Because of these channels, their seeds dwell there. If our wind energy and mind, or essences and mind, enter the animal channels, then I will dream that I myself have become a tiger, or that I myself have become a jackal, and so on. If my wind energy and mind enter the human channels, then I will dream of various human forms. Therefore, in our sleep and dreams, these different distinctions in dreams can also be explained through the channels, wind energies, and essences. These conditions are explained very clearly. Perhaps I will not be able to finish today, then I will not continue this topic anymore. This is for those of you who have studied some before but have not studied much, so you should correspond and check, right? Next, let us explain. Just now the text says, your eloquence is inconceivable. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's eloquence is inconceivable. Even if the Buddhas of the 10 directions praised and proclaimed your inconceivable deeds, they could not finish in thousands of myriads of kalpas. The Sutra of the 10 Wheels of Ksitigarbha also says that in the time it takes to eat a meal, he benefits beings in immeasurable worlds. This also cannot be fully expressed. Therefore, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, truly at every moment, in countless worlds, these deeds of benefiting sentient beings, if we were to proclaim them one by one, not to mention us ordinary beings, not to mention Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, even the Buddhas of the 10 directions, proclaiming with their wisdom, could not finish speaking. It is so vast. First, because the Buddha wants to entrust sentient beings to him, he first praises him. Also, to make Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva happy. When the Buddha speaks, sometimes there is still that kind of very subtle meaning from a worldly perspective. The Buddha said again, Ksitigarbha, Ksitigarbha. Again, with great importance and great earnestness, he called the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva twice. You should remember, today in Trayastrimsa heaven, before hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis, unspeakable, unspeakable, numbers of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the 8 classes of beings in such a great assembly, I once again entrust to you these sentient beings of humans and devas who have not yet escaped from the burning house of the 3 realms of cyclic existence in the future. I entrust all these sentient beings of humans and devas to you.
Ale, chure.
Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is truly like a particularly compassionate mother who entrusts her children to others to watch over when leaving, extremely worried. He said, today, before so many beings, the sentient beings of the human world and the heavenly realm are all very pitiful. They have been continuously sinking in the ocean of suffering of cyclic existence in the 3 realms. So today I entrust them all to you, I entrust them all to you. Then, no matter which sentient being, you must not let them fall into the lower realms in the future, even for a single day and night. This is his intention. Why does Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva often go to the hell realms? Part of what the Buddha said to him was to not let them fall into the three lower realms. The Buddha said, "You cannot let these sentient beings fall into the lower realms, not even for a single day and night. How much more so falling into the incessant hell or Avicii hell? If they fall there over thousands of myriads of kotis of kalpas, they will have no opportunity for liberation. That is even more unacceptable. Not even for a single day and night should these sentient beings fall into the lower realms. For a longer time, that is even more unacceptable. The compassion and power of blessing of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is truly inconceivable. Because the Buddha entrusted them to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in this way at that time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva possesses inconceivable skillful means, awesome spiritual power, wisdom, and compassion. If we sentient beings have not formed even the slightest connection with him, I am afraid Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva will also find it very difficult to save us. If we ourselves do not have even a single penny, then no matter how good our connections are, we still might not be able to get out of samsara or make it to any better place. But if we ourselves have a bit of merit, and then our various connections, conditions, and resources are all good, we will also have our wishes fulfilled. Many worldly conditions are also like this. Therefore here, the Buddha earnestly entreats Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva once again, you must protect these pitiful sentient beings of humans and devas from falling into the lower realms. Many of us also think this way. It doesn't matter if I am not reborn in Sukhavati, but I absolutely must not fall into the three lower realms. My bottom line is not to fall. I also often say this. In the past, Tulku Tishta from our monastery, whether confessing or reciting scriptures every day, would say, I am particularly afraid of falling into the three lower realms. Once I fall into the three lower realms, there is truly no way out. So each time before the Sangha, he would sincerely pray, all you members of the Sangha, please bless me. Otherwise, in this lifetime, if I fall into the three lower realms, when will I ever have a chance to rise up again? He would always pray very sincerely and directly in this way. So many of us are also like this, whether achieving enlightenment in this life or attaining rainbow body. These are all beautiful ideals and beautiful aspirations. Of course, everyone desires them greatly. But even if we do not realize such aspirations, in our next life at least, we should not fall into the three lower realms. We should at least obtain a human body. If we obtain a body in the higher realms, we still have opportunity. Therefore, forming virtuous connections with Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is extremely meaningful. The Buddha continued to tell Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, the sentient beings of Jambudvipa are without fixity in their wills and characters. Most of them are accustomed to evil. Actually, the sentient beings of our Jambudvipa still have many bad habits. What are these bad habits? Their character is unstable. We can also see this, whether we are people engaged in study, reflection, and meditation, or monastics or lay practitioners, whatever we are doing. Some may be doing it because they are forced to, truly having no choice but to do things in this way. But for others, you could have carried on perfectly well, yet in the end afflictions arise again and things still fall apart. Many people are without fixity in their wills and characters. It would be fine if sometimes becoming virtuous, sometimes becoming evil. But most of the time it is becoming evil, with many habitual tendencies toward evil. Even when they generate a wholesome mind, it fades within a short time. Even sometimes we may give rise to bodhicitta, generate renunciation, or develop some pure mind, faith, and so forth toward the Guru and three jewels in a very short time. It regresses. If we encounter some evil conditions, evil companions, or evil environments, or various adverse conditions, then the unwholesome is increased thought upon thought. In this Jambudvipa, all actions are karma, all are faults. Indeed, if we want to do virtuous deeds, the conditions are not very good. For example, if we build a monastery, make a Buddha statue, or do some life release, even the surrounding environment has this restriction or that restriction, all kinds of things not being permitted. If we commit the 5 crimes with immediate retribution, or engage in various kinds of killing or stealing, it seems many avenues are relatively easy and also relatively lawful. The law also supports it, policy support it, and the Constitution supports it. In this human world, many things are like this. When it comes to doing unwholesome actions, everything often goes surprisingly smoothly. But when we try to cultivate virtue, the conditions around us are often lacking, and our own mental strength isn't quite firm enough. There are many obstacles and hindrances. So what is said here is truly like this. Therefore, at that time, our teacher Shakyamuni Shakyamuni Buddha manifested hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of forms to guide sentient beings of different capacities, different aspirations, and different faculties. He came to this Saha world and liberated them in the manner of various emanations. Moreover, when guiding, he also did so in various forms. The Sutra Lankara also says, "The Buddha in the three realms seeks those who can be guided, like a cow seeking her calf, with loving thought and no rest." Just as in the three realms, the Buddha is constantly seeking all kinds of skillful means to guide sentient beings, manifesting in countless forms to lead and awaken them, so too is it like a mother cow searching for her calf. The Buddha's loving concern for all beings never pauses, not even for a moment. So many of our spiritual masters and gurus who are emanations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas actually also have an urgent heart to guide sentient beings day and night. I have often encountered some gurus. When they see some with relatively good capacities who have faith in the guru and three jewels who love to maintain pure precepts and who love to guide sentient beings, they say, "Yes, yes, if you need anything in any case." Many gurus, especially Mahayana gurus, when they take in disciples with relatively good karmic connections, it is just like a mother cow seeking her calf, extremely earnest. In the past, I have encountered many. These gurus I have relied upon are indeed very compassionate. Actually, they are not doing it for themselves, thinking, when I'm old, someone will care for me in my old age, make tea and serve meals for me. It is not for that. Rather, they feel that those with virtuous roots, those with karmic connections, will probably be able to benefit sentient beings in the future. Therefore, the Buddha indeed guides sentient beings in this way. The practices of our spiritual masters with karmic connections are also like this. Shakyamuni Buddha said, "I guide sentient beings in this way. Therefore, Ksitigarbha, I now earnestly entrust devas, humans, and the multitudes of beings to you. I entrust all these devas and humans to you. In the future world, if there are devas or good men and good women among humans who plant a few roots of goodness in Buddha Dharma, even as little as a strand of hair, a speck of dust, a grain of sand, or a drop of water, like a single hair, like a single mote of dust, like a single grain of sand, like a single drop of water, you should use the power of the noble path by means of your skillful means and wisdom to support and protect them, so that they gradually cultivate the unsurpassed way and do not retreat from it or lose it. You must find every way to protect this person and gradually enable them to attain the unsurpassed supreme enlightenment, the fruit of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. On the Bodhisattva path, do not let them regress forever. Of course, if there is this condition, these people create some wholesome roots. We ourselves must also create some wholesome roots. If we ourselves have not created wholesome roots, and we commit all kinds of evil every day, perhaps truly even the Buddha's wondrous hand would find it very difficult to sever your suffering. In the Compassionate Lotus Sutra, there is also a sentence, "Although the world-honored Tathagata is a field of merit, if there are no wholesome roots, he cannot sever all sufferings and afflictions." Although the Buddha possesses all kinds of compassion, wisdom, and awesome power, these merits, if sentient beings themselves have not gone and created even the smallest wholesome roots, like a single grain of sand or a single mote of dust, then the Buddha also has no way to directly sever your sufferings and afflictions. If you have not formed virtuous connections, it is very difficult to directly sever your afflictions. Therefore, we ourselves should also create even the smallest wholesome roots bit by bit. If we ourselves have not created such wholesome roots, it is indeed very difficult. Furthermore, the Buddha said, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, in the future, if devas or humans fall into the lower realms to undergo ripened effects according to their karma, and when on the verge of falling into these lower realms or at the front of these entrances, if these beings are able to recollect a Buddha's name, a Bodhisattva's name, or a sentence or a verse from the Mahayana Sutras, and they uphold it and praise it, then for these sentient beings you should use your spiritual power to skillfully rescue these beings. For these people, manifest your infinite forms at the places where they are, shatter the hells for them, and enable them to be reborn in the heavens and experience excellent, wonderful happiness. Originally, these sentient beings were to fall into the three lower realms, but because they created some wholesome roots, there is also hope. What kind of hope is there? In the past, in the collection of Essence of All Sutras, it was said that there was an arhat who knew that his mother had fallen into the hell realm. but the Arhat's divine powers were limited. If he himself went to guide the sentient beings in hell, there would be certain difficulties, so he had no way to go. Finally, he saw that there was a king who had killed his own father. His lifespan was only 7 days. So he went to the king and said to him, "You only have 7 days. Use this time to sincerely recite the Buddha's name. If you truly fall into hell, your earnest recitation of the Buddha's name will bring about your liberation." That king had great faith in the Arhat, so he began to learn how to recite and how to visualize. He learned very well. After 7 days, he truly died. After he died, when he arrived at the entrance of hell, because the Arhat had taught him very clearly, he loudly recited the Buddha's name. As a result, because of reciting the Buddha's name, the sentient beings in hell, including the Arhat's mother, all attained liberation. This Arhat had a good method. He himself had no way, so he taught the king to recite the Buddha's name. As a result, when the king went to the hell, he recited the Buddha's name for himself, not intentionally on behalf of others. But this sound enabled the sentient beings in the hell where his mother was to all attain liberation. There is such an account. When some of us arrive at the entrance of hell, we might recall the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or the names of other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or even a verse from other Mahayana sutras. In all these cases, relying on Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's great power and merit, one will still be rescued. At this time, the world-honored one spoke in verse, saying, "Devas, humans, multitudes of beings of the present and future, I now earnestly entrust to you. You must not disappoint me. Use great supernatural power and skillful means, guide them across to liberation." When guiding sentient beings, the minimum requirement, what we often call the bottom line is that these sentient beings would not fall into the 3 evil realms. As for the rest, if they truly must continue suffering in the human world, that can be acceptable, but primarily, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva must definitely rescue the sentient beings of the 3 lower realms. I forgot to tell the efficacy story today, but now I can tell it here. I can also speak about the 3 lower realms. In the past, there was a monastic who was particularly devout and also studied Vajrayana. He often prayed for beings in the intermediate state. He made the aspiration to create images of Amitabha Buddha, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Mahastama Prapta Bodhisattva, as well as Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and Nagarjuna. When he was just preparing to create the images one night, he dreamed of someone calling himself the Yama ghost, probably an evil ghost. He started saying to him, "I hope you will not create these images. If you create these images, it is not very good." The monastic said, "Why is it not good?" He said, "Especially if you create images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, my 3 lower realms will basically all become empty. All of you from the human world will not come anymore. In that case, my business will not be good. So you absolutely must not create images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva." The next day, after he woke up, he was very happy. "I must do my utmost to create images." Then he made the aspiration that for his whole life he would create images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. These images were extremely blessed. The author of the Records of Efficacy of Ksitigarbha image said that at that time those images were extremely numerous in various places, just like in the past. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche created images of Guru Padma Sambhava in many places. Perhaps at that time, the images of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva still had great blessing power. So in the future, because now most people in cities are all live in high-rise buildings, whether monasteries like in the past will be convenient or not sure. In the future, perhaps many people's living arrangements will differ from the past. But if it is possible in the future, we should have images or tankas of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in our surroundings or in some places that ordinary people much valued, or in some of our enterprises, whether people have faith or not, or our own family members, they can all come to worship the Buddha and offer incense. This is very necessary. Everyone's abilities differ, but if everyone has such an aspiration, it is very good. In the past, it seems that on a certain street in the United States, there were often murders and all kinds of accidents. Later, they created a Buddha statue there, and all the violent deaths completely disappeared. So in some of our places, I feel it would be best if we truly do not have other option, then in our own bedroom, if conditions permit, in the future it can transform it into a shrine hall, a Ksitigarbha hall. After you leave this world, your books and Buddha statues, that many abroad, are like this. For example, some ordinary person is not some particularly famous author or literary figure, but an ordinary person because abroad they place great importance on the law, they have legal protection. So inside his own house, all the books and all the holy images, no one else can touch them. So sometimes perhaps the books and Buddha statues we have requested throughout our lives, we place all the images of Ksitigarbha and Shakyamuni Buddha in the house. When dying, we say, these cannot be touched, these are my possessions. However, perhaps after you have passed, after 49 days, they will all be sold and thrown away. Who knows how your relatives and friends will be? If we have the ability in various different centers and places where people reside, for example, images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, sometimes it is not necessarily required to build a shrine hall. Rather, it can serve as a cultural symbol that everyone reveres. This is also acceptable. For example, if we have an enterprise, then in the office where everyone gathers, it cannot be placed low. It should be in a relatively high place. If we place an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then for the entire enterprise's fortune and the enterprise's financial prosperity, and in all aspects, it will bring auspiciousness to everyone. Tomorrow or the day after, I will teach about auspiciousness. As it says in the Mangala Sutta, people greatly love auspiciousness. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche used to say in the past, "Good fortune as you wish." His Holiness spoke these Chinese words, "Good fortune as you wish." Very well. So generally during the new year, I always want to share that with everyone, because just by having everyone hear it of his Vajra speech, it should bring auspicious clouds to many people. I have such a thought. Actually, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in various ways can block the doors to the evil realms and guide us to the higher realms, even guide you to be reborn in Sukhavati. This is extremely meaningful. At this time, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Mahasattva knelt on his knees, joined his palms, and addressed the Buddha, saying, "World-honored one, may the world-honored one not be concerned. Please do not worry or be anxious. World-honored one, please rest assured. In the future world, if there are good men and good women who have a single thought of reverence in the Buddha Dharma, I will also guide these people with hundreds and thousands of skillful means. If there is a single thought of reverence, even a bit of reverence, then I will also liberate those sentient beings. So forming connections ourselves is very important. Even if it is just a bundle of flowers, a stick of incense, or a lamp, we have also spoken about this many times in the past. It is indeed very important. As an ordinary being, if you use all of your time for practice every day, I feel it become increasingly difficult. But as long as you do not give up about your practice, your recitation, and your meditation, if you do not give up, you will definitely make progress. In the Lotus Sutra, it also says, if a person with a distracted mind, even with a single flower, makes an offering to a painted image, they will gradually see countless Buddhas. Even if we offer a single flower before a Buddha image with a distracted mind, in the future we will gradually encounter countless Buddhas. We will gradually see countless Buddhas. This is an inevitable principle of dependent arising. So finally, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva also makes this promise before Shakyamuni Buddha. Please rest assured, if there are only good men and good women in the teachings of the Buddha Dharma, if they have only a single thought of reverence, I will also guide this person in every possible way. In birth and death, enable them to quickly attain liberation. I will find ways to enable these sentient beings to attain liberation in a very short time. How much more so for those who often hear various virtuous teachings and practice thought upon thought. Naturally, on the unsurpassed way, they will never retreat. It must be like this. Those who often engage in hearing, contemplating, and meditating, who often listen to teachings, and who often continuously benefit sentient beings, I just need to give them a slight nudge, and it will work. It will not require a lot of effort. For these sentient beings, there should be no problem. Even for those who have only a tiny bit of virtuous mind, I will still guide them. So the Ksitigarbha Sutra, every day for many worldly people, they are very busy, tired, painful, and under great pressure. And for people who is struggling under various kinds of pressure, actually just reciting a single Buddha's name to praying to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, offering a lamp or incense, no matter how tired or busy you are, it is not very difficult. We should try our best to persevere. At this time, there was a bodhisattva in the assembly named Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. All the 8 great bodhisattvas that are basically all have appeared. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva only now comes out. Maitreya Bodhisattva was there, right? Mahastama Prapta Bodhisattva did not come, right? Who else? Sarvanivarana Vishkambin Bodhisattva also did not come. Some of the 8 bodhisattvas were a bit busy. Just kidding. Some bodhisattvas did not come. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva spoke thus, addressing the Buddha. World-honored one, after I arrived at Trayastrimsa heaven, I heard the Tathagata repeatedly praise the awesome power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, his inconceivable awesome power. In the future world, if there are good men and good women, as well as all devas and nagas who hear this Ksitigarbha Sutra, or hear the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and then gaze reverently and behold the image, in that case, how much merit and benefit will there be? May the world-honored one, for the sake of future and present sentient beings, briefly explain this. If speaking extensively, then it would be inexhaustible, so you may speak briefly. The Buddha then told Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, listen attentively, I will explain this to you. I will explain this to you distinctly. If in the future world there are good men and good women, who see the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or hear this sutra of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or even recite it, and with incense, flowers, food, clothing, and jewels to make offerings, praise, gaze reverently, and pay homage, they will obtain 28 kinds of benefit. These 28 kinds of benefit, we often speak of them. Its primary conditions are paying homage to the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or hearing the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. These 2 are the most crucial points. In that case, he will obtain 28 kinds of benefits. Actually, I think many of us can do this. Recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra and the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva by yourselves, or you often make offerings to images of Ksitigarbha. For some of our practitioners, I think after this teaching is finished, many people will perhaps make offerings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva throughout their lives and recite the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This is very good. This should be achievable. It is not very difficult. As long as you have faith, it is not very difficult. If you do not have faith of it, everything is relatively difficult. Indeed, it is like this, especially if you are unwilling and do not have aspiration on that. Maybe just asking you to burn a single stick of incense may be still unwilling to do it. We see some people who, without faith, just asking them to make a single prostration, I do not want to prostrate. Some parents, when bringing their children, and those children deliberately do not want to prostrate, so before their parents they act like they are crazy. I do not want to prostrate. In the past, there have been such situations. Actually, ordinarily, they are very normal. If they play with their cell phone, they are very normal. But if you ask them to make a prostration, they start acting crazy. Without aspiration, making even a single prostration is difficult. But if there is aspiration and faith, indeed, it is also relatively simple. This is a very simple matter. The first is that devas and nagas will protect them. Just now, those 2 conditions before each one need to recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra, or the name of Ksitigarbha, or make offerings. Then all the heavenly realm and the Naga realm's Dharma protectors will also often protect you. You do not necessarily have to recite every single day. Even if you cannot recite and you stop for 2 or 3 days, the Dharma protectors will not be unhappy. All the retinues of the Devas and Nagas are protecting you because you are a person who recites the Ksitigarbha Sutra. They are all protecting you, so you do not need to worry. Also, the fruits of your worldly and transcendental virtue will increase daily. Especially if you dedicate with bodhicitta, it will increase even more abundantly. The third is that they will accumulate superior causes for holiness. We have merit tending to happiness and merit tending to liberation, right? This refers to merit tending to liberation. Causes for holiness means escaping cyclic existence, liberation, including wholesome roots, such as emptiness and bodhicitta. They will increasingly grow and be gathered. The fourth is that they will not retreat from bodhi. Some of us have given rise to bodhicitta, but in between it often regresses. But if you pray in this way, then you will never retreat on the bodhisattva path. The fifth is that their food and clothing will be abundant. All wealth will be complete. Now, some people often cannot obtain wealth. They are particularly poor and very sad. They also cannot find it for themselves. This can also be resolved. The sixth is that they will not be infected by diseases or pestilence. All kinds of pestilence and epidemics, Ebola, bird flu, and all sorts of illnesses are often spreading now. These will also not descend upon you. The seventh is that they will not be in disasters of flood or fire. The eighth is that they will not fall victim to robbery or theft. There will be no thieves. They will not appear. In the past, some people would steal cattle or horses between the neighbors at night. Now, there are high-tech thieves. Money is stored in bank cards. But when they checked their bank balance and found that all the passwords have already been discovered, not a single penny is left. Ah, is this real? Some even collapse at the bank counter. Ah, my money is gone. People who recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra do not need to worry about this. The ninth is that people who see them will admire and respect them. As we say, everyone who sees you loves you. Every flower that sees you blooms. Whoever sees you will be particularly joyful, because some people find them disagreeable. They are also very distressed. They do not have confidence. In a crowd, they know that everyone will dislike them. But some are very pleased with themselves, particularly confident and thinking, ah, I am such a person. Not only humans, even ghosts and spirits are greatly love me. The 10th is that spirits and ghosts will aid and support them. Just now earlier, there were Nagas and Devas. Here, probably the worldly, various hungry ghosts, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and ghosts and spirits. They will also often assist those who recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Actually, protection by non-humans is still very important. If there is protection from non-humans, many things will be relatively smooth. If non-humans do not protect you but often disturb you, many things will not be successful. The 11th is the two men who wish to will be reborn as men. You will transform into a male body. If you do not wish to do so, the 12th is that they will be daughters of kings and ministers and the daughter of those with great prestige. The 13th is that they will be good-looking and with perfect features. Your appearance will be especially dignified, lovely, and beautiful. The 14th is that they will frequently be reborn in the heavens. You will often be reborn in Trayastrimsa heaven, Tushita heaven, these heavenly realms, enjoying the happiness of the Devas. The 15th is that they may be emperors or kings. You will also become a king, president, prime minister, minister, or emperor. The 16th is that they will have the wisdom to know past lives. You will have the wisdom of knowing past lives and what your past lives were like. Many of us do not know. Because we do not know past and future lives, in the Nirvana Sutra, it also says that because ordinary beings do not know about past and future lives, they are not afraid of committing negative karma. Just like when fire is covered by ash, foolish people step on top of it because we do not know past and future lives. We will be burned by the fires of hell. Therefore, everyone does not know how to adopt or reject. But if you have the wisdom of knowing past lives, it will not be like this. The 17th is that they will fulfill their wishes. You will obtain whatever you think of. As soon as you think, some people say, I dare not think, otherwise if I think it will come. So I cannot think about money, otherwise there will be too much money. I cannot think about people, otherwise everyone will love me. I cannot think about status, otherwise status will naturally come. So sometimes they desperately try to control their own thoughts. They have such great confidence in themselves. Family members will be joyful. All family members will live especially joyfully. The atmosphere will be very good. For some people's family members, there is scheming and intrigue and really complexity with so many conflicts and disputes. But for some rulers or for some people, the atmosphere around them is all harmonious coexistence. The 19th is untoward dire occurrences will be eliminated. All kinds of sudden calamities and disasters will vanish completely. Actually, many young people, some people are suddenly die, such as violent deaths or sudden deaths. There are many sudden attacks. This is also related to one's own karmic connections. But if you pray as described earlier, these won't happen. Then they will forever leave the karmic paths. Originally, in your mind stream, there was much negative karma, including that which would lead to the incessant hell. But by relying on the blessings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva, it will also be eliminated. The 21st is that they will pass through safely wherever they go. Wherever you wish to go in the human world, there are no obstacles. You can travel anywhere in the world. You have a green card everywhere. There are no obstacles. I don't know how it is now. In the past, people in some places could freely travel to many countries around the world. In the past, someone told me, I have access to 180 countries in the world. As long as I want to go somewhere, it was as simple as showing an ID, and I could be on my way. I was very envious at the time, because at that time, our country's policies had not fully opened up yet. Actually, in the human world, if you wish to go anywhere and can travel freely, that's also very good. After death, whether to Sukhavati, Tushita heaven, or the joyful Pure Land, or Medicine Buddha's Pure Land, wherever you go, having no obstacles and no adverse conditions is also very good. This kind of unobstructed access and freedom to go anywhere. 22nd, for those who recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra, their dreams at night will be peaceful and happy. 23rd, their deceased relatives will leave suffering behind. They won't come to trouble you. The 24th is that they will be reborn on the strength of their past merit. By relying on one's merit from past lives, one is reborn continuously. Some people are not reborn through merit, but through negative karma. For instance, when negative karma from a past life ripens, you fall into the animal realm or into the hell realm. But for those with merit, even though you have negative karma on your alaya, you have the merit to be reborn continuously in the higher realms. Then you create more merit, create more virtuous deeds, and continue in this way, reborn on the strength of their past merit. This explanation is perhaps better. Although there are different explanations, when I translated this, I read through these quite carefully. So it's particularly easy when explaining them, you know. I'm not bragging, truly. 25th, holy ones will praise them. One will be praised by Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and great masters. You're reciting the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Wow, excellent, excellent, wonderful. The 26th is that they will be intelligent and have keen faculties. Upon hearing once, you comprehend 1,000 things. Everything becomes completely clear, very easy. Your wisdom becomes especially sharp. The 27th is that their hearts will be replete with kindness and compassion. The 28th is that they will ultimately become Buddhas. These are the 28 kinds of merit for humans. Following this, there are 7 kinds of merit for non-human spirits, and then it's basically complete. Then it says, Akasagarbha Bodhisattva. If devas, nagas, ghosts, and spirits in the present and future hear the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or make obeisance to Ksitigarbha's image, or hear of Ksitigarbha's original vows, deeds, and practices, and they sing his praises, gaze reverently at, and make obeisance to him, they will gain 7 kinds of benefits. Earlier was only the 28 kinds for the human world. This was when the Buddha was at Trayastrimsa heaven. They also have different merits for devas, nagas, ghosts, and spirits. The first is that they will quickly ascend the stages of holiness. They surpass the holy grounds of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. The second is that their unwholesome karma will dissolve. Actually, these evil ghosts and spirits have very heavy negative karma, and they also need to eliminate negative karma. The third is that all Buddhas protect and come to them. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas protect these ghosts and spirits. The fourth is they will not retreat from Bodhi. Among them, those who have aroused bodhicitta will not regress. The fifth is that their inherent powers increase. Their spiritual powers increase. Because these ghosts and spirits have different inherent abilities and powers. These powers will increase. They won't gradually, little by little, be unable to fly or unable to go. It won't be like that. The sixth is they will know past lives, because they all basically possess different kinds of the 5 super knowledges. The seventh is that they will ultimately become Buddhas. These benefits are for ghosts and spirits. At that time, all the inexpressibly inexpressible number of Buddhas, Tathagatas, who had come from the 10 directions, as well as great bodhisattvas, devas, nagas, and others of the 8 kinds of beings, on having heard Sakyamuni Buddha praise and extol Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's power of great, awesome spiritual penetration as being inconceivable, exclaimed that there had never been anything like this. His praise in this way was almost unprecedented, extremely rare. At that time, the circumstances of his praise were especially moving. At this time, measureless incense, flowers, heavenly garments, and pearl necklaces rained down in the Trayastrimsa heaven. What would rain down from Trayastrimsa heaven? There showered down countless fragrant flowers, heavenly garments, and jeweled necklaces, as well as all sorts of things, because in the heavenly realms, these heavenly rains generally shower down naturally as offerings to Sakyamuni Buddha and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Here it's mainly Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and Shakyamuni Buddha. Afterward, the entire assembly again reverently gazed, made obeisance to Sakyamuni Buddha and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then joined their palms and withdrew. After this, there is no phrase, all greatly rejoiced. Some great masters have said this is because the Ksitigarbha Sutra was taught by the Buddha in his later years, close to his parinirvana. So at that time, the entire atmosphere was rather sorrowful and sad. Finally, among his followers, they did not say all greatly rejoiced. There are such accounts. In ancient commentaries on the Ksitigarbha Sutra, it is also explained this way. Perhaps this is so, but sometimes it's not necessarily the case, because in some of the Buddha's early sutras, including sutras like the Ekottara Agama, in certain individual sutras, at the end it also says, joined palms and withdrew. So perhaps it's not necessarily always like that. Perhaps the Buddha at the end had different conclusions. Perhaps there are such situations. In any case, this time, in a special environment, during special days, we have perfectly completed the original vows of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra. I translated it into Tibetan text and also recited it once for everyone. Whether this counts as a transmission, I don't know, but sometimes when you look at it, perhaps it can be. For instance, the Sutra of Great Liberation, the 100 Deeds, including the Nirvana Sutra, many were translated from the Chinese Han Buddhism. But there are transmissions in the Tibetan Tripitaka. If that's the case, then it's also possible that this could be counted as a transmission as well. In any case, at the beginning of the year, due to various circumstances, including the pandemic and governmental policies, each of you here at Larungar was confined to your small cabins and could not come out. We felt that teaching the Dharma, receiving teachings, and hearing the sutras were all incredibly difficult. But in the first half of this year, through everyone's efforts, now we have completed the study of Ksitigarbha Sutra successfully. Now let's pray, by the mighty power and qualities of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, as well as of the original vows of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra, may the world be free of wars, famines, plagues, and other calamities. May every household, especially for lay people, enjoy peace and happiness. May all monastics observe pure precepts, continuously hear, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma, and perfect their activities of spreading the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings. May the entire world everywhere have favorable weather, and may all 6 times be auspicious. Amitabha Buddha, should I say Namo Amitabha Buddha or Namo Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva? That should be fine. In any case, we've completed the teaching. How many lessons have we studied together? 25. Very good.
Kirgana jirano chupai, chupun zonen droa droa sho.
Bandangara badna asadarda. Bandangara badna asadarda. Bandangara badna asadarda.